険な蝶になってきらめく風に乗って今すぐ君に会いに行こう。余計なことなんて忘れた方がましさ。これ以上されてる時間はない。何がこの空に届くのだろう。だけど明日の予定もわからない。無限大な夢の後の何もない世の中じゃそうさ愛しい思いも負けそうになるけど静寂なイメージだらけの頼りない翼でもきっと飛べるさ。Oh my love。無限大な夢の後の何もない世の中じゃそうさ愛しい思いも負けそうになるけど静止がちなイメージだらけの頼りない翼でもきっと飛べるさ。Oh yeah。 無限大な夢の後のやるせない世の中じゃ常識外れも悪くはないから清楚なイメージを染めたぎこちない翼でもきっと飛べるさ。Oh my love。 ご機嫌な蝶になってきらめく風に乗って今すぐ君に会いに行こう。余計なことなんて忘れた方がマシさ。これ以上しゃれてる時間はない。何がこの空に届くのだろう。だけど明日の予定もわからない。無限大な夢の後の何もない世の中じゃそうさ愛しい思いも負けそうになるけど静止がちなイメージだらけの頼りない翼でもきっと飛べるさ。Oh my love。 浮かれた蝶になって一途な風に乗ってどこまでも君に会いに行こう。曖昧な言葉って意外に便利だって叫んでる悲壮に聞きながら何がこの街に響くのだろう。だけど期待してても仕方ない。無限大な夢の後のやるせない世の中じゃそうさ常識外れも悪くはないか そうになるけど静止化しないイメージだらけの頼りない翼でもきっと飛べるさ Oh yeah 現代な夢の後のやるせない世の中じゃそうさ常識外れも悪くはないから清楚なイメージを染めたぎこちない翼でもきっと飛べるぜ Oh my love
Hello friends and enemies, we are back. So I literally just took a quick break, used the restroom, got everything set up for this next stream. Let us go ahead and review what happened in the last act. Just a quick reminder of everything that happened.
Don't you want to know the truth of the two worlds?
Hello, Professor Ryuzenji.
The core research that will determine the future of our company is being conducted here. I'll give you this.
A Digimon linker?
Mind Link has a time limit. Your consciousness can be left behind on the other side. I, for one, do not want to lose my men.
Let's go, Lugamon. We're going to infiltrate the SOC. And we're going to find out who the Tartarus is.
Deputy Squad Leader, we have a suspicious Digimon in sight.
used and discarded Digimon.
It's turbulence! The deep digital world?
The hacker! Judge!
I wanna change my life.
Warning! Target digivolving!
So that's a quick review of what happened in Act 1. And also it was our preview. Looking back now, that trailer was actually pretty accurate. Now, for the trailer for Act 2.
Run! Cut the mind link!
Edgy. So you're really Edgy, Nagasumi? The mission objective is to neutralize the X-Country data server and capture the state's secret class Digimon.
This is a free fight.
Leon, it was good to see you again.
Hackers and codecrackers must settle their dispute. It's time to begin. It's time to fight for real.
You're still looking for the Black Agumon, aren't you?
There is no justice to be found in your actions.
I will win! Even if I have to use you as a springboard to do it!
It's no good. It's out of control. Let's take this ending back to the beginning.
This act only has a total of 13 chapters counting the intermission, where the last act had 18 chapters. So we're going to do in this segment chapters 1 through 7 for this act, and then if I have enough energy, I will reset stream again, and we will do 8 through the intermission, unless, and this is a key on that, unless I do not have the energy, in which case we will pick up where we leave off. But we only have 2 acts to go. Act 3 has 12 chapters, as does Act 4, but Act 4 technically includes the epilogue, so that would be 13 chapters again. So we're getting close to the midway point. Here we go. www Airline Flight 626. None of that should be of significance to anyone. Not the airline, the flight number, nor the model of plane to which it all refers. Not in today's world, where gigantic news stories are so frequent as to bleed together. And while they're not an everyday occurrence, plane crashes happen. Though not every crash leaves a number of dead or missing persons in the triple digits. www Airlines Flight 626 reached its cruising altitude somewhere above 30,000 feet, before suddenly and inexplicably deviating from its flight path and disappearing altogether. Authorities confirmed that the plane crashed into the ocean, but its flight recorder was never recovered. Nor was a single body. Everyone aboard was eventually presumed dead. Several months later, a piece of the plane washed ashore thousands of kilometers away from the crash site. The cause of the crash was never determined, let alone whether it was an accident or foul play. Theories on everything from mechanical failure to pilot error were floated, but none were confirmed. There was, however, one person who knew the truth, that a code cracker used an AI known as a Digimon to deliberately crash www Airlines Flight 626. This was not made public, because the public wouldn't have understood. They weren't even aware of Digimon, let alone the digital world's existence. Leon Alexander snapped bolt upright in bed, his breathing ragged. The nightmare was back. He hunched over and steadied his breathing before reaching out into the darkness where a soft light greeted him. I heard you scream. Are you okay, Leon? Said the Digimon beside his bed. The Digimon was not real, but hololized, and gave off a gentle glow. Its body crackled with electricity, and little sparks occasionally shot out from its hide. Pulsemon, Rookie, Beastman, Vaccine. It looked like an electrical fairy. A lightning bolt-shaped lick of fur stood up from its forehead, bobbing gently as it doted on its partner. Were you dreaming about the accident again? You haven't done that in a while, it said softly. Yeah, Pulsemon, it's back, Leon groaned. Pulsemon's light illuminated the bottle of mineral water on Leon's bedside table. He grabbed it, twisted off the cap, and proceeded to drain the entire bottle in one go. Do you need your medicine? No thanks, I'm good. What a time to be awake, huh? Leon's apartment afforded a commanding view of the Denrin district, whose skyline was barely visible in the pre-dawn light. You've got an early class today, don't you? Why not try getting a bit more sleep? Pulsemon suggested. No, I'll just get up now. It's a boring subject, but the professor's real strict about attendance. The courses were online lectures, though you couldn't just leave the live stream running and go about your business. There were attendance checks and pop quizzes at the end, which was a real pain. Do you even need to graduate at this point? You're basically an Aberdeen Electronics, a DDL employee. Pulsemon said impishly. I promised my father I'd graduate and get a job, and that's what I'm going to do. Besides, being a college student leaves me plenty of time for other things, Leon replied. Like ethical hacking? Pulsemon asked with a playful wink. I'm gonna take a shower, Leon said with a chuckle. The nightmare had left him sweaty, and a shower would set him right. He hoisted himself out of bed and shuffled to the bathroom. Digital World, Wallslum, 9th District. Lugamon and a hololized Eiji stood before the husk of the Castle of the Nine Wolves in the heart of Lugamon's home turf. In other words, you didn't regain your memory, Eiji said to Lugamon. You can tell by the smell that I grew up in Wallslum on 9th Avenue and had a territory around here. The memory is fragmentary, and the details are refreshing. Well, it would be nice if you could remember. No, not really. Huh? Is that so? Lugamon doesn't seem to be particularly particular about his lack of memory. You humans, do you remember everything from the past and want to remember forever? Nothing before elementary school. Is there anything else you want to remember about middle and high school? After graduating from high school, Eiji, who became a part-time code cracker, inevitably reset his friendships with those who went on to college. Right, forget about it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Lugamon is something of an adult. Hard-boiled? Then, at the time, 3 Tyrannomon appeared in the square of Kowloon Castle from alleys here and there. Oh, you guys, good job. The Tyrannomon continued vocalizing, transferring the data they'd gathered to Lugamon in the process. They'd managed to map out most of the 9th District and estimated the number of Digimon within its confines while they were at it. They were quite the little lackeys, weren't they? Lugamon asked, sounding rather impressed. To Eiji, they were more like brothers. Tossed them a couple strips of meat as a reward. You could be the 4th if you wanted, Eiji offered. The Tyrannomon would outrank me, Lugamon growled. Eiji flashed a playful grin. Set them to patrol 9th District periodically. I fear there are those foolish enough to dare invading my territory while I'm away, Lugamon said. We'll set up the routine now. Good luck out there, fellas, Eiji said, patting a Tyrannomon that loomed over him. The Tyrannomon responded with quick low growls. He couldn't exactly talk to them since he hadn't bothered to mind link with them yet, but he could now tell when they were trained to communicate with him. That was new, and it felt nice. The wail of a sharp, piercing siren snapped Eiji out of his momentary reverie. What's going on? He spun around, searching his surroundings. It wasn't a warning from the Digimon Linker or any other Digivice. The other Digimon in the square field fled in a panic. Some retreated into the buildings or underground bunkers. Eiji, Lugomon shouted above the den. Gather your Tyrannomon and get out of here. Why? Eiji shouted back, calling up a virtual monitor. He swiftly returned the Tyrannomon to their dock, quit out of his hololized form, and returned to Lugomon's Digicore. He could now see through Lugomon's eyes, thanks to the virtual monitor that opened at Eiji's eye level. Lugomon dashed up the side of the Castle of Nine Wolves, which rose higher above the den of iniquity that was the wall slum. Atop it sat a watchtower, which in turn gazed out at the vast digital ocean. The Digimon lookout within was sounding the alarm Eiji had heard moments earlier. Vortex! Vortex! The Digimon shouted repeatedly. Vortex? Eiji repeated. He wasn't entirely sure what that meant in the context of the digital world, but he could tell it was bad. The panicked Digimon below were enough of a hint in that regard. There, Lugomon said, shifting his gaze. Eiji's eyes focused, revealing a gigantic hole, no, a whirlpool, on the surface of the vast digital sea, like someone had pulled the drain plug in a massive bathtub. It had to be several meters in diameter, and it was sucking all manner of digital detritus into its gaping maw as it slowly moved across the surface. We stand on the firewall that protects the digital world from contaminated data from the real world. But of course, no wall is perfect. There are small gaps and cracks, and those are the cause of the vortex you see here, Lugomon explained. The firewall protects the digital world. The gateway manages the flow of web traffic, and the wall slum is built from the wayward bits of junk data that accumulated around the gateway. But as Lugomon said, no firewall is perfect. The gateway must not be the only gap in the digital world's defenses. So that's coming from a hole in the digital world's security? Eiji yelled, the various puzzle pieces suddenly sliding into place. Exactly. We don't know when or where they will occur. Think of them as natural disasters, and that area in particular is a hotbed of vortex activity, Lugomon said, slowly tracking the vortex's path. How do you mean? All the data that the wall slum cannot hold spills out from the rusted coast into the real world like so much garbage. As you have a garbage patch in your ocean, so too do we in ours. I do not know why the current carries it all there, but there it remains. A floating island of refuse, Lugomon said gravely. It's awful. Over there, meanwhile, is the Dust Kingdom, where not even the scavenger Digimon of the 5th District dare to tread. It's full of garbage data, and we've yet to determine whether that's the cause of the Dust Kingdom's corruption. Care to elaborate? The corruption is multifaceted, and it creates vortexes. Though the vortexes are generally short-lived, every so often a particularly large one forms. On rare occasions, they even threaten the wall slum directly. What happens then? The vortex was right before their eyes now, grazing the shores of the wall slum. An immense roar filled the air as they watched it tear up the section of the wall slum, breaking apart the data as it sucked it into its vast void. The district is completely erased, including all the Digimon who live there, Lugomon said solemnly. You can't be serious. Fortunately, the worst did not come to pass. The vortex grazed the outer shores of the wall slum, retreated and dissipated. The siren ceased wailing, and Digimon re-emerged into the castle of the Nine Wolves public square. What happens when you get sucked into the vortex? If it really is a hole into the digital world's firewall, does it take you into the depths of the digital world or something? Eiji asked, furrowing his brow. If there was a wall, and the wall had a hole in it, then there must be something on the other side of the hole, right? First of all, we don't call what's behind the wall another layer or the depths, and besides, it's an impossible question to answer, Lugomon said, shaking his head. What makes you say that? The digital world cannot know peace so long as a hole in the firewall remains open. If a human from your world were to make use of one and reach, as you call it, the depths of the digital world, Lugomon let the thought hang in the air. What would happen? Eiji asked, swallowing hard. Well, your corporeal form might survive, but your consciousness would not. Under no circumstances would the digital world system administrator abide an intruder from the real world. Now, let's go, Lugomon said sharply. Go where? Don't go where me. You're the one who set the reminder, and now you're the one being reminded. That was enough to jog Eiji's memory. Time flies when you're mind-linking. Oh, shoot. My appointment with Professor Senji, he shouted. Eiji severed the mind link and returned to reality. Aberdeen Electronics, Denrin Digital Laboratory. Good morning, you two. These are phenomenal results. Professor Senji beamed, heaping praise upon AG and Lugomon as he walked into his office. Thank you, Professor. We owe our successful mind link to the Digimon linker and your tireless work, AG said, smiling from ear to ear. Lugomon's hololized form sat curled on the sofa. And your compatibility! It takes more than an advanced device to create a successful mind link, and it won't work with just any Digimon. You two share a special connection, Professor Senji said with a grin. Still, AG began. When I came out of the mind link and woke up back in the real world, I still feel a little bit dizzy, he explained. He'd been more than dizzy, in fact. First time he awoke from the mind link, he found himself leaning against the wall of his apartment. His head was swimming, and the room spun wildly around him. He felt like he was going to throw up. I've been monitoring your vitals through the Digimon linker, and I haven't noticed anything unusual. Even looking at past trials, I don't think we need to be concerned, so long as a bit of rest was enough to help you recover, the professor explained. It was no different, apparently, from an astronaut returning to Earth after a stint in zero gravity, and something AG would grow accustomed to in time. That's a relief. Oh, and there's just one more thing, right, Lugomon? AG said, glancing up at his partner. Don't look at me. I'm exhausted. Lugomon mumbled. He certainly did not appreciate being bothered during nap time. Then I'll say it. This Digimon, he can talk in the real world, too. AG blurted out excitedly. Once you've mind-linked with a Digimon, you're able to talk with Digimon who've mind-linked from that point onward. The professor calmly replied. Yes, even after the mind link was severed. So there are more talking Digimon in DDL, is what you're saying? AG prodded, extrapolating from the professor's idle past trials comment. That, as you know, is classified D4. Professor Senji answered by way of indirect confirmation. DDL was AE's bleeding-edge research laboratory, and the D4 division was full of exceptional hackers, code crackers, and now, AG suspected, powerful Digimon. Right then, to business, the professor said, pivoting to the meat of the meeting. AG's midterm performance review. Professor Senji selected AG to infiltrate the notorious team of codecrackers known as the Sons of Chaos, or SOC. The aim of this gambit was to get close to Tartarus, their mysterious leader, and learn more about the massive operation the SOC are planning. I got word from the interviewer that I've passed their entry exam, AG said, flipping his phone around to show the professor. Said interviewer's avatar, an abstract figure wearing a necktie as a headband, sat alongside a grim message informing AG he'd passed. And what was the substance of the test? A survey of the Wall Slums 9th District? Where code crackers and Digipolice alike fear to tread, the professor noted. I mean, it was no problem for me thanks to the mind link. I got lucky, though. Turns out, Lugomon used to live over there in the 9th District. We were right back in his old stomping grounds. You knew that already, didn't you? AG asked slightly. Well, DDL collected, the professor began, choosing his words carefully, Lugomon from the Wall Slum all those years ago to keep him safe. Safe from? AG asked expectantly. That's classified D4, AG asked, guessing the answer. Quite right. Now, were there any more developments with regard to Lugon's memory? The professor asked. He only remembered bits and pieces when he picked up his own scent in the 9th District. I don't think he remembers digivolving into Lugomon this time so much as he remembers that he used to be a champion way back when. AG said, following his hunch of his. So he's rediscovered some of the power he ought to have, the professor said, nodding. He couldn't remember much of anything previously. The other Digimon of the Wall Slum, however, remembered him. Lugomon, I believe they called him Demon Wolf of the Castle of the Nine Walls. Lugomon was, by all accounts, the boss of the 9th District, and had the moniker to prove it. So this royal runt is fit to be king, eh? Glad to see I wasn't far off in my approach to training him, AG said, pleased with himself. I'm sure you're aware, but we've observed errors and gaps in Lugomon's memory. What we would call amnesia in humans, the professor continued. Yeah. It's possible that as he remembers more, he'll suffer bouts of mental anguish. If and when he does, AG, I want you to be there for him. It was clear from the professor's gentle tone of voice that he cared deeply for Lugomon. The little creature wasn't just some AI program to him. Like all Digimon, this pup was worthy of love and protection. You got it. AG looked over at Lugomon, who was still curled up on the sofa. Whereas AG was hololized in the digital world, here in the real world it was the other way around. When I was hololized in the digital world, I think I started to understand Lugumon a bit better. Like how Digimon feel, I guess? Eiji couldn't quite adequately put his thoughts into words. Is that so? Well, let me just say I feel incredibly fortunate to have met such a young codecracker myself, the professor said, interrupting Eiji's meandering musings. You really mean that? So much has happened since I met you and Lugumon, and now I really want to work with them to change life in the digital world for the better. Yes, life. Well then, I suppose that makes you two partners in this endeavor. The word partners hit Eiji just right. You bet we are. He felt a genuine connection to Lugumon. He knew they were meant to be a team, helping one another navigate the digital world. He would do whatever it took to make sure Lugumon felt the same way about him. If he could manage that, they could do anything, even change life in the digital world for good. Oh yes, here's a little something extra for you, seeing as how you got into Digivolve to the champion level, the professor said softly. Awesome, a bonus. This was uncharted territory for Eiji. No matter how many hours he poured into his job, he'd never be able to save up 100,000 DC, let alone 500,000. Now, though, he wouldn't struggle to pay rent, or his credit card bills, anytime soon. Feeling financially stable was exhilarating and merited celebrating with an expensive sushi dinner. His small successes in the digital world were paying real-world dividends and, in turn, affording him the ability to take on more risk in the hopes of reaping big rewards down the line. Now, Eiji, I want you to continue your investigation into the SOC, Professor Senji ordered. Well, I am an official member now, and I've already been contacted by the higher-ups, too. Got a meeting with them later today, in fact, Eiji said. You certainly work quickly, don't you? The Mind Link works wonders. It's better than any business card. The mere mention of a Mind Linker had earned him immediate respect. Wearing the Digimon Linker conferred more status than any luxury watch he could have bought. Who are you meeting with? Let me check. Eiji scrolled through the messages on his phone to find the name. Marvin. A codecracker. His name's Marvin, I think. I've only ever messaged him. Marvin the Songsmith. You certainly weren't kidding about meeting the higher-ups. Professor Senji rarely took such great interest in people, so this caught Eiji's attention. Is he famous or something? He writes and corrects code as a virtuoso plays their instrument. He's one of the lead developers on that app you all use. Grim, that's the one. That makes him one of the leading software engineers in the world. Grim protects its financial and social media services with extremely robust security. People the world over trust it implicitly. If you work for or run an upstanding business, however, you can't use Grim for official business. Why? Rumor has it that it's developed and run by volunteer codecrackers. That said, all manner of public institutions and armies reach for Grim out of sheer convenience, which naturally causes all sorts of information and security problems. Well, this is huge. Their leader Tartarus might even be waiting on the other side of Marvin's door, eh? Eiji mused. Be careful, Eiji. You're a spy. Never forget that. You must operate in SOC's inner circles without blowing your cover. And I would prefer that you have a long career, the professor cautioned. Yes, sir. Good. Now, before you meet with a member of the SOC's upper echelons, it's important I show you something. Something that is a matter of life and death for you. The professor opened a file on his computer for Eiji to see. D4, classified, mind link experiment. Number, redacted. Date, redacted. Redacted site, DDL. Channel SOC is the Grim-hosted headquarters of the codecrackers known as the Sons of Chaos. Grim allows anyone to set up any kind of channel they want, so the SOC set up their very own safe haven on the network. Their top page features propaganda videos from the codecracker team alongside a range of other content. Information about the digital world, Digimon trading tools for sale, miscellaneous chat rooms, and more. They've even set up a sort of virtual reality lounge where members can communicate with one another as their avatars. The room isn't that large, though, and the graphics leave a lot to be desired compared to the latest online multiplayer games. It's Eiji! The man, the myth, the legend? The hotshot rookie who took out the Digipolice this year! The voice memo posts were coming in thick and fast, and in no time everyone in the SOC knew about the fresh-faced codecracker who managed to take on the Digipolice in the Wall Slum and win. The source of the story wasn't clear, but word got out despite Eiji's interviewer being the only one privy to it. The star of my own show. Eiji himself was the source of the rumor, of course, The SOC were interfering with the digital world far too much, and putting Digimon in danger in the process. That's why Professor Rasinchi tapped AG to get close to Tartarus, the leader of the SOC, and find out why. So he set about making a name for himself as a hotshot codecracker. A name that Tartarus wouldn't be able to ignore. Okay, so I didn't actually make up a name and accidentally used my real name. Details, am I right? It's fine. It's a common enough name anyhow. AG sat, leaning against the wall of his loft, his eyes fixed on the virtual monitor before him inside his digital linker. The SOC lounge was designed in a cyberpunk style, reminiscent of a plant factory city with pipes. On it, you could see the SOC's virtual lounge on Grim. It wasn't so much cyberpunk as factory aesthetic. A city full of sneaking pipes that recalled some kind of industrial plant. Lugomon sat beside Eiji's avatar. They weren't mind-linked. It was obvious that he was a Digimon, even with the graphical limitations. There would be no mistaking his presence for that of a Digimon in a dock, a hololized image, or the stylized image avatars of the lounge. This AG codecracker is a popular guy, Lugomon said flatly. Which is all according to plan, AG said knowingly. They weren't careless. Lugomon and AG had established a private chat to keep people in Grimm's open chat from hearing Lugomon's voice. How convenient that all these codecrackers happen to think you're the hotshot codecracker, Lugomon continued dryly. Well, I actually am, you know, and one of a handful of top-class codecrackers who can mind-link, AG retorted cockily. He was right that the hurdles to mind-linking were high. One needed a device capable of interfering with the bleeding-edge Digimon docks being developed in AE's laboratories. They continued to take a casual stroll through the lounge area. What are you doing, Lugomon? AG looked in time to see Lugomon, back leg lifted delicately in the air, peeing on a steel structure. Just marking my territory. You can't run around marking wherever you want. This is the SOC's public space. AG scolded. So I should make the SOC my army of followers instead? Come on, pal, we're spies. We can't attract too much attention. AG felt justified in setting their chat to private mode. It was impossible to tell what was going to come out of his mouth. Pal? Really? Lugomon protested, cocking his head. Well, you didn't appreciate me treating you like a superior, and since we're partners, pal seemed like a safe choice. Lugomon didn't respond and simply lifted his nose into the air. The telltale sign that he'd picked up an interesting scent. Someone's running a search on me, he said quietly. He was being watched. Unlike AG, who was a person inside a loft, Lugomon existed as bits inside of the SOC-hosted channel on Grimm's server. So we should be worried about that, AG asked. Well, I certainly don't like it. There, that's who's doing it, Lugomon growled, glaring at the avatar before them. A Digimon with large, cracked wings fluttered like a butterfly above an avatar rendered as a black man with dreadlocks. Airdramon, champion, mythical beast, vaccine. The Digimon looked like a dragon from Eastern mythology, snake-like, flying, without arms or legs. I'm Marvin, from the SOC. It's a pleasure to meet you, Codecracker AG. His tone was warm and friendly. Pleasure's all mine, Marvin. I've heard a lot about you. So you've read my messages, then? Sure have. This is my partner, Lugomon. Lugomon appeared to say something more to Marvin, but his chat was muted. Airdramon let out a series of sharp cries. Your partner? Alright, I see how it is. Marvin appeared rather impressed. So to what do I owe the honor? AG asked. AG, according to my records, you applied to join the SOC channel just a couple days ago. That's right. Ever applied to join under a different name or belong to any other code cracking teams? Nah, always been freelance. It was the truth. You sure about that? Are you always this suspicious of people? AG's heart was pounding. Well, when I hear that a rookie who joined within the last 24 hours absolutely embarrassed the Digiplease, I tend to think it's either a lie or a story with way more to it. Marvin said through a smirk. AG kept quiet. Perhaps Marvin was generally wary. Regardless, AG now stood before one of the SOC's higher-ups. That had to count for something. But AG felt compelled to break the silence. I also don't think a code cracker capable of mind-linking would go out of their way to do something stupid. Follow me, and we'll finish this conversation. They walked further into the plant, passing steel supports and pipes spewing steam. AG received an invite code from Marvin's room, which shared the same cyberpunkish aesthetic as the rest of the channel. This is my private room on the SOC server, Marvin's avatar said in lieu of a formal welcome when he sat down on the chair. AG tried to tease out what kind of person Marvin might really be. Aside from a genius engineer, of course. So, you're a pretty big deal in the SOC, AG offered. There's no such thing as a big deal among us, but I've got some privileges on the channel, sure. Story I've heard is that you're the engineer that built Grimm, is that true? Well, I was one of the first core members on the project, but so were a lot of people. I just helped with a handful of lines of code, and suddenly I'm the self-proclaimed creator of Grimm, according to everyone else. Grimm's cabal of dedicated code crackers based it on a number of different apps. So you made all the Digimon tools is what you're saying. AG was trying to connect the dots. My main job was the creation and evaluation of those tools, yeah. If you want to put it in order, just say the word. Press tools free. AG glanced over at Digimon. Its tail was tightly coiled around a catwalk above them. Lugomon was being led around the room by the nose. Something else entirely had cut the Met's attention. Now, down to business. The SOC is planning something big, AG, but we don't have the numbers to pull it off. Well, there it was, the big operation Professor Senji mentioned. You don't have the numbers. Aren't there a ton of people in the SOC? AG asked, feigning ignorance. Oh, I mean, we have way more members than we need. What we don't have are enough top-flight code crackers who can mind link and go toe-to-toe with the Digipolice. And then you showed up. I'm in. I'll do it, AG said bluntly. Pretty quick answer. I just assume you know how dangerous a job this is, then. Marvin took a breath. An uncomfortable silence hung in the air. All AG could think about was his missions. Spy on the SOC, find out what they're up to. He didn't have the bandwidth to consider the operation's finer details. Dangerous, sure, but is that dangerous? Look, you picked a fight with the Digipolice and won. I get it. Marvin was impressed by this kid, and he wasn't about to disrespect him. SOC hierarchy be damned. If they wanted a code cracker who could mind link, this was the level of code cracker they'll be dealing with in terms of mind link performance and influence. Was that bad? AG was suddenly extremely worried about everything. You gave the Section 11 Commandramon unit the boot and incapacitated its deputy squad leader for good measure. That puts a gigantic target on your back. They'll lock you up and throw away the key if they catch you. Yeah? Digimon, by the letter of the law, were tools of law enforcement. And they would probably argue that AG destroyed police property, and that would be hard to wriggle out of. I guess I did wreck their faces. Satsuki was pretty pissed too. Because you don't miss. We wouldn't be having this conversation if you didn't know how to handle yourself, Marvin said admiringly. Still, AG suspected they wouldn't have been laughing if he told Marvin that Satsuki also knew his real name. So this big operation you're planning, is Tartarus involved? AG was laser focused. Curious about our leader. Well, yeah, my interest in the SOC started with Tartarus, whose code cracking skills are the stuff of legend, right, Lugomon? Woof. Lugomon barked and took off, dashing from end of the factory floor to the next. Whatever Airdramon tossed with its tail, Lugomon was on a mission to fetch it. Is that a ball? AG asked distractedly, staring at the scene before him. Your Lugomon is one protective and well-trained pup, Marvin said as he got up and walked toward Lugomon. He's never really been around anyone but me, and he's a wolf, not a dog. AG's voice was filled with worry. Lugomon stared Marvin down as if to say, take this ball from me, I dare you. Who's a good boy? Go get it. Marvin tossed a bit of data into the air, a bone-shaped treat. Woof! Lugomon barked and took off at full speed, eyes locked on the morsel. Sure does act like a dog for being a wolf. Hey, hang on a minute. He doesn't do that stuff for me, AG blurted out, suddenly green with envy. Tartarus seldom makes appearances, Marvin said suddenly. Sorry? The higher-ups in the SOC don't know much about Tartarus either, but they personally ordered us to carry out this operation, Marvin explained as he sent AG another invitation code. Operation Infinity, it read. Quite the name. That's the channel where we'll discuss the plans. I'll share the files with you. It's happening tomorrow at... Marvin was being very careful not to let anything slip, revealing the time to AG and AG alone. You'll get the rest of the details once we're assembled there. That's it. AG now knew the name of the operation, when it was going to happen, and that they would be meeting in Marvin's room. Goes without saying, you'll need to be mind-linked. I can get you money for anything else you might need. Great, I'll message you later then. AG chirped, desperate to take advantage of this stroke of luck. An organization the size of the SOC must make boatloads of money off their activities on Grimm. He imagined he could expense whatever he wanted, whether he had the receipts or not. Alright then, Marvin said. Catch you later. Actually, there is one last thing. Marvin let the words hang in the air, stopping AG and Lugomon in their tracks. You know anything about a Black Agumon? Marvin asked pointedly. Nope. AG quipped. The silence persisted. He was just desperate to fill it. I just know that people are looking for one. Well, we're the ones offering the cash for it. The SOC. Wait, the 1 million DC reward? AG was floored. Marvin's avatar crossed its arms. It's pocket change for Tartarus, but finding that Agumon has become his obsession. Interesting. All the members to participate in Operation Infinity gathered in Marvin's Channel SOC room. They numbered 8, including AG. Everyone's an avatar naturally, but no Digimon accompanying them. A virtual monitor displays the briefing for the operation. It's an overseas operation, AG said to him, swallowing hard. There are no borders in the digital world, but there are on the networks in the real world. Physical servers are hosted in countries with geopolitical borders and are subject to their laws or the rules of whatever organization owns them. The large-scale operation the SOC had been talking about was nothing less than the hacking of a foreign nation's server, the Nation of X. They're near the bottom in terms of GDP, but they're notorious state sponsors of terrorism, Marvin said matter-of-factly. Some dictator or another had ruled over the nation for decades now. I've heard of them on the news, AG said quietly. You okay, AG? The other SOC bigwigs turned to look at the fresh face, having somewhat of a naive reaction to the proceedings. So we're just gonna mess these guys up because we don't like them for some reason, is that it? The room erupted into laughter. AG began to suspect that most of the people in the room were not Japanese. Sorry, AG man, I know this part of the briefing is pretty boring for your highly skilled code-cracking self, but we gotta get through it. We're all in the SOC family, but it's rare that we actually assemble a team at this level. Gotta make sure everyone's on the same page, Marvin said patiently. The X-Nation is a nuclear power, and is recently engaged in cyber warfare in the digital world to distract from continued terrorist activities that threaten to destabilize the real world. A number of cyber attacks have come out of there in recent years. Just the other day, they hacked the securities exchange and stole the equivalent of billions of dollars in cryptocurrency, Marvin said, returning to the matter at hand. That was their doing? AG couldn't help himself. Yep, it was a state-sponsored Digimon crime. And we can't let that happen anywhere near the Grimm economic bloc on our watch. This is fundamental to our ideals and our freedom. Grimm famously ran on Digicoin, or DC, its proprietary cryptocurrency. It let Grimm break away from the most popular fiat currency, the US dollar, and formed the Grimm economic bloc. That bloc, in turn, became the self-perpetuating source of Grimm's vast wealth. Based in the lawless digital world as it was, the bloc sent shockwaves through the real world's financial markets. Grimm's very existence posed a direct threat to the monopoly that the US government and the central bank had on currency production, which gave them the power to shape the world as they pursued their own interests. To these entities, the thought of the DC reaching the same value as the US dollar was a crisis scenario. The value of world currencies would collapse, and the public would suffer massive losses at the hands of a world they didn't even know existed. Those building their future in the digital world, meanwhile, would be afforded massive amounts of power, and would precipitate a financial crisis worse than any that had come before. The current ruling class would do anything in their power to place restrictions on the digital world that they might one day control it themselves. Much of this went right over AG's head, but he understood that the world's government stood in opposition to this crew. There was money in the digital world, which was what drew AG to it in the first place. Codecrackers were denounced as terrorists by the international community, but were nevertheless willing to risk everything to open the new frontiers in the digital world. That freedom was intoxicating. But, wait, if the X-Nation is committing cyber terrorism and Digimon crimes, if you take a step back, So are all of us codecrackers, right? AG asked, working through the problem as he went. The room erupted in laughter once more. Codecrackers weren't exactly upstanding citizens to begin with. You've got a point, AG. The difference is that the X Nation's dictator does not respect the freedom of the network, or the digital world, as we do. To the extent that he does, he respects it only as far as it serves his own interests. Yeah, but I want to strike it rich too. Isn't that why we all became codecrackers? To change our lives? Well, that brings me to why we want to target the X Nation. To piss off the dictator. AG thought to himself. The SOC bigwigs were even more to the point. We want to destabilize that sorry, balding excuse for a leader because of his mega machine Digimon. AG introduced, silencing the room. The X Nation is using a mega Digimon to commit Digimon crimes and cyber terrorism, and they're pinning it on the SOC. AG had called Professor Senji as soon as he got out of his private meeting with Marvin. All it took was the name Operation Infinity for the good professor to decipher their plans and explain the situation in painstaking detail. It all came back to the dictator of the X Nation and the fact that they had one Mega Digimon. Back in the present, Marvin took a sharp breath. So you know about that, huh? Digimon crimes rarely make the news unless they lead to major accidents. That's how they remain a secret from the general public. You want to get back at the dictator that made you look bad? Damn right. Underestimate us, pay the price, Marvin yelled. It was pure mafia logic. Make us look weak, we'll get you right back. That's just how life as a codecracker works. Everyone was here. This was it. The voice chat was crackling with nervous energy. Even their avatars looked stiff and twitchy. Seeing as how there are some fresh faces here, allow me to introduce myself. I am the leader of the SOC, Tartarus, and I will be running this operation, a disembodied voice said above all the others. AG swallowed hard. Tartarus is here. AG had finally met Tartarus, well, her Tartarus. Our target is the X Nation server. Our goal is to render the server useless. Additionally, we will capture their state-secret machine Digimon. Incredible, AG thought to himself. A state-secret Digimon. One capable of penetrating national security or creating extremely hardened defenses against outside attacks. An ace in the hole for any fight, being it cyber, conventional, or some mix of the two. Even the tiniest nation in possession of such a Digimon would command an international attention as countries with nuclear weapons once did. It's time to take that balding dictator down a peg! The entire squad erupted in cheers at those words. They set their watches to local time at the attack site. This is a fight for freedom, and those who raise the flag of freedom must wage a lawless war, Tartarus growled. For the freedom of the network, Marvin shouted at the top of his lungs, riding on Tartarus' fervor. For the freedom of the digital world, the squad shouted back. No team of codecrackers is as unified as the Sons of Chaos, is what people will say if this operation succeeds. Soon the world would be forced to reckon with the SOC, a team of codecrackers capable of toppling nations. AG could feel the strength of Tartarus' leadership. The higher-ups took out their Digimon. The majority of them were cyborg types, a favorite among codecrackers. AG muted his microphone and looked down at the Digimon linker. This is it, Lugumon. Here we go. You keep reading that operation file. I've already finished reading it. Right. One by one, each member's avatar disappeared from the virtual monitor, and their Digimon too blinked out of existence. They were all now mind-blinked. AG slid his eyes down to the next item on the list. Launch a direct attack on the X Nation server from the digital world. Alright, here goes. AG's heart was leaping out of his chest. No matter how hardened the security, mind-linking would allow him to slip in unnoticed, like a ninja. AG pressed a button on his Digimon linker. Freed the Digimon world from its bonds. Okay, AG, you're up. Come on, pal, let's give it all we got out there. AG was almost certain he'd get to meet Tartarus face-to-face if they pulled this off. He took a deep breath. The sensors lit up for a check of AG's vitals. He was clear to issue the command. Limiter disengaged. AG's vision was bathed in white light, and he could feel everything slipping away. Mind link. The mind link digitized AG's consciousness and transferred it into Lugumon's digicore. Ooh, out-of-body experience. Eiji said in an exaggerated, spooky voice. What are you talking about? Lugumon was having none of Eiji's jokes as usual. I mean, doesn't it feel like I'm some living spirit possessing you or something? Enough with this spiritual nonsense. If your consciousness is inside of me, what happens to your body back in the real world? Are you dead? Nope, pretty sure I'm still alive. Pretty sure. Really? No, now that you ask. What the heck is going on with my body right now? Eiji was very concerned. Didn't Rusenji explain the risks of mind linking? Yeah, but all his explanations are so hard to follow. I do remember him telling me to mind link somewhere private so people won't see me. He recommended the toilet. Did it look like he was asleep while he was mind linked, or more like he passed out? I'll laugh if you peed yourself when you severed the link, Lugumon said. Yeah, I knew I should have sat on the toilet. You'd give yourself hemorrhoids, Lugumon shot back. Lovely. Wonder what the SOC bigwigs are doing. Eiji held up his end of the conversation, but he kept turning Professor Senji's words over in his mind. Now that you've met with the members of the SOC's upper echelons, it's important that I show you something. Something that is a matter of life and death for you, Professor Senji said, opening a classified file on the monitor in his DDL office. D4 classified, mind link experiment, number redacted, date redacted, redacted site DDL. The title card of the video was heavily redacted, but Eiji could tell ML stood for mind link and D4 referred to the classified division inside the DDL, which means this footage was of a previous test. It was taken from a camera attached to the ceiling. A person dressed in a special suit sat on a sheet laid atop a bed. The suit was connected to something just out of frame by a cord, and they wore a helmet covered in sensors on their head. The whole getup prevented Eiji from gleaning anything else about them, but they were obviously the subject of a mind-linking test. Who was that? He asked anyway. He was a hacker who worked for the laboratory, and a fantastic one at that. He'd logged more hours mind-linked than anyone else at the time. In fact, I believe his record in the simulator still stands. The video sped up. The test subject laid down and was strapped in. Eiji was trying to figure out which Digimon this person was trying to mind-link with, but something awful happened before he could ask. A gasp stole his question. There was no sound on the video, so he couldn't tell what, if anything, was being said. Then again, he didn't need to. The hacker was convulsing wildly, as if they were being electrocuted. Had they not been securely strapped in, they would have surely fallen off the bed, risking further injury. Medical staff came rushing into the picture, futilely trying to hold the hacker still. Eiji watched as they let out several silent screams. A few moments later, the hacker was motionless. The staff set about removing the suit, and the video cut out as they began removing the helmet. What happened? Eiji asked, swallowing hard. Their partner Digimon ran into trouble. We theorized this overloaded the mind link. Ryusenji said flatly. Overloaded it how? You haven't read the manual yet, have you? The professor asked admonishingly, his shoulders slumping. I'm more the learn by doing type. I shouldn't need to tell you that mind linking is extremely risky, Ryusenji said. Eiji instinctively nodded in response. Extremely, you say. As a result of fusing with the Digicore, your ability to communicate with and issue commands to your Digimon increases greatly. Speeds are otherworldly, but there is a limit to how long you can stay in this state. Okay. This time limit depends on the level of training and physical conditioning of the hacker or codecracker, their compatibility with their partner Digimon, and the Digivolution level of the same. Right, the Digivolution level. For a rookie level Digimon like Lugumon, the countdown is extremely slow. This explains how you were able to spend so much time in the wall slum. Should Lugumon digivolve to the champion level or beyond, time will tick away far faster. Suppose through a chain of unfortunate events, Lugumon digivolves to Mega status. Eiji posited. I imagine the mind link window would be quite short indeed, the professor said. Eiji gulped. Why, is there a time limit? Eiji wondered aloud. There is an upper bound on the amount of time one can remain mind-linked. I call it the limit line. Spend any amount of time above that line, and your consciousness will fuse with the digital world trapping it there. When you say fuse? Eiji began. The Digicore is placed under immense strain as well, and in the worst-case scenario, it would be completely destroyed. At the very least, it can lead to memory errors. I'm guessing the hacker in that video went over the limit line. What happened to them? DMIA. Ryusenji enunciated each letter carefully. DMIA? It was obviously an acronym, but the meaning was lost on Eiji. Digitally missing in action. It's the designation for those who are lost to the digital world while out on assignment. The hacker you saw in that video, for instance, is one such case. Their consciousness will never find its way back to their corporeal form in the real world, and will never likely track it down in the digital world, the professor said quietly. Eiji flinched, disturbed by what he was hearing. People were completely lost? Doomed to wander the digital world? So then, the body, what do you do with the body? That can't go to the digital world, right? Eiji was grasping at straws now. We left it in the lab room. It is now an empty husk. The professor replied, underlining the poor hacker's misfortune. You just left it there? They'd quite literally given up the ghost. There was no chance the hacker could be revived. Eiji flinched again. DMIAs have increased in recent years, but that also points to an increase in the overall skill of the average codecracker on the street. Means more of them are capable of mind-linking these days, equipment or no. The same can be said of the Digipolice's forces too, of course. Even so, once they cross the line, it ends one of two ways. And those are? Eiji asked, unsure if he wanted to know the answers. The vast majority of codecrackers aren't found in time and die once their bodies fail. I imagine this would be your fate, the professor said gravely. Oh, very comforting. So he'd die in his 3 tatami mat-sized one-room apartment and no one would be the wiser. His rent was paid by automatic withdrawal from his bank account. With his newfound savings, it would be several months before an overdraft hit, meaning his neighbors would complain about the stench of his rotting corpse long before anyone else came to check on him. He'd just be another loner who died of unknown causes. Or if you're lucky, you're found unconscious and taken in for medical treatment. You'd be in a coma, but your body would be looked after for a time, anyhow. Unfortunately, not a single person who has been determined DMIA has naturally regained consciousness and returned to the real world. Not even one? We can't even locate lost hackers' partner Digimon. We presume they've run off. Even if we did find them, the hacker's consciousness would likely have fused to their partner's Digicore. Eiji was speechless. So long as he respected the mind-linked time limit, he'd be able to put on quite the show. But it was a heck of a risk. For safety, I've set another line. The C line. C for caution. This is the line at which you stand the best chance of returning to the real world naturally if you sever the mind link and exiting the digital world. Sever the mind link at the C line before reaching the L line. Simple enough. The Digipolice follow a similar system to the letter. You may think them hasty when they sever their mind links, but now you know that there's a very good reason why. Geopolitical borders matter on real-world networks. Governments can, if they so choose, refuse connections originating from other nations. They can also, and probably have at one time or another, cut the fiber optic cables running across the sea floor, or taken their network of satellites out of orbit in order to physically restrict access. The digital world, however, has no such borders, or physical mediums, which is something of a security issue, to put it mildly. What the SOC is about to do, hack into the X Nation's server, and commit cyber terrorism, is illustrative of that issue. Their defense? Codecrackers just like them, but under a dictatorship, which is bad, have done the same. Lugomon tore through the digital world at the speed of light. What do you think Tartarus will do once they have the state's secret Mega Digimon? Eiji asked. The Airjamon, mind-linked to Marvin, pulled further out in front. They were operating in teams of 2, with each pair approaching from a different direction. What do you mean, have? Marvin shot back. Well, the orders are to capture it, right? Not destroy it? Stealing the head of a multinational terrorist organization's prized pet Digimon was going to be way harder than simply killing it. Eiji, look. You're more interested in Tartarus and the whole SOC organization than you are in this operation, aren't you? Eiji could hear the hesitation in Marvin's voice. Well, man, this operation has been all I can think about. I didn't even sleep last night. I'm gonna slip up and draw attention to us because I'm too tired. Can we please focus on the mission first? Marvin suddenly felt he clearly overestimated AG's abilities. Which is good news for me, AG the spy, but still. Thank you, MindLink. Thank you, Professor Sinji, for that, and so much more. I've known Tartarus the longest out of all of us at the top. We go back to the founding of the SOC. Well, hello there, old-timer. But even I only know half of Tartarus' story. I'm sure there are plenty of reasons to go after a state-secret Digimon. There, on the other side of the wall, Marvin said. He and Airdramon looked down. AG lowered Lugamon's gaze too. What they saw looked like a planet amidst the sea of stars, with a surface not unlike Earth's crust. The digital world, which no one had ever set foot inside, lay beyond the firewall, deep below them. Then again, the digital world wasn't exactly below them either. The constructions of the real and digital worlds were completely different. If you were to lay it all out, AG guessed it would have looked like a giant, sprawling space colony. There were Digimon living in there, though, and likely in far better conditions than what he'd seen in the wall slum. The depths beyond the firewall, AG repeated in wonder. One theory about Tartarus' identity is that they're a researcher trying to research the digital world, which would make them like Professor Sinji. Was that why they needed such a powerful Digimon? Is Tartarus trying to bust through the wall? AG gave voice to the question he'd backed himself into. Maybe. Huh. That wasn't a satisfying answer. They're no ordinary code cracker. They're taking on challenges in the digital world, looking for something. Always looking for something. Marvin trailed off. Anything in particular? Not money or fame, obviously. The freedom everyone on the team talks about? Could be. Or a piece of the network on which to build their own country, Marvin said. A country on which to raise an army of hackers and Digimon that would commit cyber terrorism on governments around the world, AG guessed. He caught something out of the corner of his eye. Vortex! He shouted. He spied one spinning up on the firewall surface. Indeed. A small one, though. Lugomon informed him, and no sooner had the word been spoken than the vortex disappeared. The 9th District would be safe for another day. Whew, that's good. That's the source of them there. The Dragon's Triangle type area I told you about. No one's allowed near it, Lugomon continued. Those vortexes are a huge threat. Code crackers like us get sucked into them. There's nothing we or our remote-controlled Digimon can do to escape, Marvin explained, uttering a little incantation under his breath that AG assumed was some way to keep it from happening to him. So those vortexes, AG said, turning his attention back to Marvin. Has anyone been brave or stupid enough to dive into one? What code cracker hasn't found a vortex they want to dive into? Marvin said with a mischievous grin. But there are gaps in the firewall, right? And if that's what's keeping us from exploring the depths of the digital world... AG trailed off, hoping Marvin would see what he was implying. I'm sure countless code crackers have sent their Digimon into those things. AG pictured storm chasers sending sensors into a tornado, or scientists launching probes to investigate the surface of a harsh and unforgiving planet. The vortexes on the depths of the digital world were drawing in everyone's curiosity, tickling their sense of adventure, and what happened to them. Well, if any lucky code crackers managed to return from the depths with a trove of interesting data, I haven't heard about it. Marvin's story wasn't any different from Lugomon's. Your corporeal form might survive, but your consciousness would not, was the wording Lugomon had used if memory served. True, the digital world system administrator won't let anyone from the real world intrude, AG said, finishing the rest of Lugomon's thought aloud. If the system administrator really exists, it's not a form we conceive of. It's not a form we can conceive of, Marvin said flatly. So you don't know anything about it? I doubt that even Professor Sinji even knows. All I know is that the rumors about the elite code cracker who mind-linked with their Digimon and dove into one of those vortexes, Marvin said wearily. Whoa. What happened to him? DMIA, Marvin said tartly. Missing, of course. AG muttered. He felt a shiver work its way through him. Mind-linking definitely afforded a performance boost, but if the mind-linked Digimon were incapacitated, their hacker partner could easily blow past the limit and become DMIA. Worse, if the Digimon died, their Digicore, along with the human consciousness fused to it, would be destroyed too. There's a story going around that says you'll get a glimpse of a system administrator if you go through one. Like all good ghost stories, they say it kills you, Marvin said with a wry smile. Say what? You know, like all those old legends say, you burn up if you catch even a glimpse of the true face of God, etc., Marvin said, adding, just don't go near the vortexes. You won't like what comes out. This was an unwritten rule even for the SOC. Okay then, noted, Eiji said quietly. Whatever fight they were about to get into in the X Nation server might visit death upon them too, whether they were ready for it or not. Living in the digital world's easier said than done, he complained. If that's what the hotshot code cracker thinks, what chance do the rest of us have? You young kids are all style and no substance. Everything's got to be a fun game to you, Marvin sniped, showing his age. Oh, just you wait until I put my game face on, AG shot back. Here's a little tip for you. Not a single person on any of the missions Tartarus led has ever DMIA'd. So that's Tartarus's leadership credential. Not bad. Everyone must really trust Tartarus. They must have some charisma if they could organize an entire attack team within the SOC. That counted for something. Enough talk. It's time to launch the attack. Enemies will be all over us, Marvin said. They had to be ready for the counterattack. There was always a counterattack. Eiji instinctively flicked his virtual monitor aside and engaged his scanners. They were rising up toward the surface of the networked seas. The islands and boats that represented real-world servers floated on the surface. Among them was the X Nation server, the target of their attack. The outward appearance of the server was, in a word, gaudy. A statue of the dictator towered above them in all its glory. We're really gonna go right into that old dude's statue. Eiji was suddenly reminded of the time he'd entered a giant Buddha statue in northern Kanto when he was a kid. Spinning needle! With a flap of its wings, Digimon sent out a knife-like wave that moved down a horde of Digimon belonging to the X Nation's defense forces. Soldiers in the dictator's own army. Professionals, though clearly not battle-tested. Howling fire! Hellfire poured out from Lugomon's mouth, covering an entire street in inextinguishable flames and stopping the defense forces in their tracks. Nice one, Marvin said, tossing Eiji and Lugomon a compliment. Are you sure I should stay a rookie? Lugomon asked. Digimon was a champion, and Lugomon clearly wanted to digivolve into Lugomon so they could be on equal footing. We're a two-person team, and I want you two to back me up. Stay a rookie so you can budget your mind link time and get us out of the fight faster. The tool I sent you has a timer on it, right? Marvin replied. When Marvin said he could get anything Eiji needed, Eiji had requested some tools of Marvin's own making. Yeah, I see it on the bottom right, Eiji said, shifting his vision to the corner of his virtual monitor. The timer was ticking down pretty slowly thanks to Lugomon remaining a rookie. Each tick was roughly a second. Marvin, the mindling tools you made are awesome. They're so intuitive. Yeah, I'm glad I'm an engineer too, Marvin joked. Eiji could see exactly how much time he had left. 0 was the L line, so he wanted to finish his duties before he hit the C line, just to be safe. Digimon was a champion, but this wasn't Marvin's first digital rodeo. Eiji reckoned they had more than enough time. Eiji, you, me, Digimon, and Lugomon are the keys to this whole operation, Marvin barked. I like the sound of that, Eiji chirped. All the support teams are engaged in a full frontal cyber attack on the server. Even the team trying to infiltrate the server is a decoy for you and me. We're gonna head straight for the Digimon, so do your best to conserve that mind link time, Marvin said as they emerged from a wireframe tunnel. Real-world servers were about the least organic things Eiji had ever seen. They looked more like a retro game from decades past. It was wild how much it changed up the scenery. What I'm hearing is, you and I are gonna capture that beastly Mega Digimon. The resistance wasn't nearly as stiff as Eiji expected. The support teams must be doing a great job of keeping everyone busy. Something's up ahead, Lugomon said suddenly. A few moments later, Digimon came to a stop at the end of the tunnel. It had been blocked off. That's huge, Eiji shouted, looking up at the door. It had to be 5 stories tall. Do you think that secret Digimon is on the other side of this? Nice work, Lugomon. I've got a good nose, Lugomon said. Busting through this lock's gonna be a pain. Marvin spat as Digimon calculated the distance to the door. Nah, Lugomon said casually and approached the door. What are you doing? Eiji asked, unease seeping into his voice. Set your tool to the code. Lugomon commanded. Okay. Decode mode. The interface on Lugamon's forehead began to glow. Wait, what? Are you serious? Marvin yelped, stunned. In an instant, the progress bar leapt to 100% decrypted. The massive door unlocked, and the deep mechanical rumbles of the massive door sliding open filled the tunnel. I'm kind of good at unlocking doors, Lugamon said, slightly surprised. Marvin's Airdramon did a quick twist in the air in a show of appreciation. You two could probably rob the central bank's vault without breaking a sweat. Go check all the bank vaults in New York City and tell me if they're really packed with gold bars, would you? Marvin joked. Yeah, pass. That would get us arrested for sure. AG retorted, trying to hide his own astonishment at Lugamon's apparently infinite potential. The massive door to the Exonation server was now wide open, revealing a vast yawning darkness, and from somewhere within rose a low mechanical roar. Machine Dramon. The Exonation state secret. Its criminal record included cyber terrorism, wire fraud, cyber attacks on the networks of enemy nations, and a litany of other charges. This was humanity's greatest foe. It was a veritable Frankenstein's monster, built from the parts of various other cyborg-type Digimon. It was, in a word, massive. Entrance to an aircraft hangar, massive. Its gleaming silver body recalled the contours of nature's most formidable carnivorous dinosaurs, and upon its shoulders rested the massive barrels of its infinity cannon. Machine Dramon. Mega. Machine. Virus. Yo, this is too much, AG yelled, quaking with fear. Codecracker or not, AG was never going to take seeing his first Mega Digimon in stride, much less one he was supposed to help capture. It's nothing more than a dog on a chain. Less even, Lugamon growled. What are you talking about? AG said incredulously. Look at it. It's held in place by a bunch of tools. Lugamon was right. Machine Dramon was leashed to the docks of the massive hangar inside the X-Nation server, bound hand and foot by cuffs of code. The beast let out another series of loud roars. Neither AG nor Marvin could tell what it was trying to say, but the roars didn't sound particularly angry, sad, or vengeful. They were lifeless. They won't let it live, but they won't kill it either. They're just bringing every available bit of power out of it. What a pathetic existence. Lugamon looked at Machine Dramon with an unusual amount of sympathy. This was a fate Lugamon wouldn't wish on any creature. Marvin's Airdramon advanced. Hit it with all you got, AG. Back us up. Yeah, you got it, AG said uneasily. Airdramon, Digivolve. Airdramon began to glow. Its lower half turned serpentine, like the Nagas of ancient myth. Its upper half took on a muscular, more humanoid form, albeit half machine, that grew even larger than Airdramon's champion form, and its robotic armor trappings made it look even more like a soldier ready for war. Airdramon, Digivolve 2! Megadramon, Ultimate. Android Virus. Ultimate Megadramon. AG gulped. Marvin's Digimon had just upped the pressure significantly. The songsmith was ready to start the show. The ultimate android Digimon are programs built to destroy. They're near-perfect computer viruses, able to infiltrate the most hardened network security en route to completely reformatting host computers on which they're installed. The Megadramon's arms looked like massive demolition machines, capable of tearing metal into scrap. It raised its arms, its 3 pincer-like fingers opening to reveal the massive cannons hidden in its palms. Eradication attack! Missiles flew out of Megadramon's hands, landing all over Machine Dramon. The blast tearing into the code, keeping it restrained. Hey, watch it, you're gonna kill it! AG screamed, his nerves jangling. The Machine Dramon remained still. It still couldn't move. Mega Digimon or not, it was completely under human control. Could it even still be considered a proper Machine Dramon? Relax, I'm only targeting its restraints, Marvin said dismissively. Maybe all chained up, but it's still a Mega Digimon. The only way we're going to capture it is by force. By force? Gotta bust this thing out of its chains and use our own capture tool on it. Time to tear him up, Marvin growled, using Megadramon's arms. Ultimate Slicer! A cross-shaped slash briefly filled the air, shredding the data that held Machine Dramon in place. That did it. Firework-like sparks filled AG and Lugamon's sight. Electrostatic discharges. The constant flickering and rumbling completely disoriented Eiji inside of Lugamon's Digicore. What the hell are these flashing lights? Electricity is the lifeblood of Digimon, but too much of it can overload their system and break them from within. In the absence of visuals, Lugamon turned to its nose. Mega, deity, vaccine. Did you say Mega? Eiji squeaked, his voice cracking as he took in the data on his monitor. There was another Mega Digimon in here? The light gradually faded. Lightning-like pulses of electricity danced along the walls as sparks leapt across the open air of the hangar. A rush of air. Neither Eiji nor Lugamon could believe what they were seeing. What the? No! Megadramon! Neither Eiji nor Lugamon could believe what they were seeing. Marvin's mighty Megadramon, which looked all-powerful mere moments ago, was now motionless and spewing smoke. Its cyborg-armored arms hung limp at its sides, massive gashes torn into the metal. What could have possibly cut into it that deeply? Nito Sarai! Twin swords' lashes ripped through the air at those words, destroying everything in their path. Lugamon continued to search for whatever had done this. One of the X-Nation's defensive units? It seemed impossible. Marvin! Hey, Marvin! Eiji shouted, but he heard no reply. This was bad, he thought to himself. Megadramon must have shut down from all the damage. He couldn't even talk to Marvin. When people mind-link to their Digimon, the Digicore is safe so long as the person doesn't hololize themselves or otherwise leave the core's confines. If the Digicore doesn't take any damage, the human within won't either. If the core gets damaged or the Digimon loses consciousness or otherwise ceases operation, the human consciousness within loses all contact with their Digimon in the outside world. Hey, new guy, a voice and shout from one of the other pairs of SOC leaders pierced the silence. Machine Dramon hasn't been they had made short work of the defenses on their way to the meetup point. Machine Dramon hasn't been captured yet? One of them yelled, startling. Whoa, what happened to Marvin? The other said as they both rushed over to Megadramon's side. A sneak attack took out Megadramon. I can't reach Marvin. Eiji gave a panoramic summary of the situation. They got him? We were supposed to draw all the defense forces away from you guys. The pair were utterly bewildered. If the defense forces didn't do it, you don't think it was the Digipolice? Eiji blurted out, panic filling his voice anew. The pair shot that theory down immediately. This was above everyone's pay grade. If it came to light that the Japanese police had also hacked the X-Nation server, it would be the definition of an international incident. It was incredibly risky to do so openly. We're up against another mega-level enemy. Everyone What was that? Cloud of static? Digital noise? There was nothing, and yet Eiji could see something catching the light. No sooner had the thought crossed Eiji's mind than a force threw him and all the others against the wall of the hangar. An electric shock rang through the wall, and from a purple electric cloud emerged lightning personified. Kazuchi-mon. The creature held twin blades crackling with light. Its clothing and obi-like belt recalled the Japanese god of thunder. Takemi's Kazuchi, from whom it likely took inspiration for its name. That thing is deadly, Lugamon squeaked, trembling. The fear hit Eiji through the mind link. Kazuchi-mon could take on 1,000 of them with its horrific blades. It had honed its body and mind to absolute perfection. Its place as a Mega Digimon was well reserved. Eiji felt faint. Mega followed after Ultimate level Digimon. They were basically the gods of the digital world. The Machine Dramon in the X-Nation's possession was also a Mega Digimon, but Kazuchi-mon was on another level in a way Eiji couldn't quite articulate. Kazuchi-mon wasn't gigantic like Machine Dramon, yet instilled levels of fear beyond its gigantic counterpart. Machine Dramon was right beside them, and yet Kazuchi-mon somehow felt more real, more alive. Mega Kazuchi-mon. We only know of one person capable of wrangling that thing. One of the SOC leaders squeaked. Wait, you know who's controlling that thing? It's a hacker, they said, their voice choked with fear. Goes by the handle Judge. The Mega Kazuchi-mon let out 2 quick grunts as it swung its swords. The lightning bolt-shaped blades cut jagged shapes through the air. Did you say Judge? Eiji hadn't expected to hear a hacker's name. Hackers were no friends to code crackers. They might as well be the police as far as everyone present was concerned. The only difference was that police, with their ability to open investigations and issue arrest warrants, were in theory public servants. Hackers were private citizens on the internet with a penchant for vigilante justice, self-governance types, self-righteous types. Codecrackers fought for the freedom of the network, but there would always be those who didn't think the network should be so free. They wielded their so-called justice like a cudgel. Hackers had all sorts of ideas about what justice was, but all agreed on the need for it. That kept them from seeing eye to eye with codecrackers. Each group talked past the other. At last, Kazuchimon's data appeared on Eiji's virtual monitor, and he noticed something right away. A mind link. Lugomon, that thing is... It wouldn't be able to unlock the full extent of its mega-level powers without one. That hacker is in deep, Lugomon said quietly. The next thing Eiji heard was the sound of rending metal, and his stomach dropping. Machine Dramon, who had been chained to the walls of the hangar, was not only awake, but finishing the job Marvin and Megadramon started. It had already freed an arm and a leg. It would be impossible to control it if it escaped. An unchecked Machine Dramon loose on the network. Eiji didn't want to think about that. What a pity, Kazuchimon said at last. Eiji wondered if it was in fact Judge's voice coming through the voice chat. But then he wondered who on earth Judge was talking to. You have committed so many crimes. Not all of them willingly, perhaps. But you will be punished for them all the same. Kazuchimon or Judge said to Machine Dramon. Had Kazuchimon been focused on Machine Dramon all this time? Whatever the case was, Eiji had a bad feeling in the pit of his stomach. No way, he whispered, shouted, aghast at what he was seeing. Kazuchimon summoned a number of spheres made of pure electricity, like it was charging up for a massive attack. In mere moments, the small space before Kazuchimon was filled with energy equal to the whole world's energy consumption at any given moment. This was pulse power, and it essentially formed the core of a small sun, kicking off nuclear fusion. Charges fired off every nanosecond from the massive energy. The final secret technique, Shinjin Shoraiko! No one saw the exact moment it happened, but when the light faded and the sparks ceased flying, all that was left was Machine Dramon's hollowed-out husk. The charges had ripped clean through, all the way down to its digicore. Eiji looked at Machine Dramon's shredded corpse. A near-splitting roar reverberated through the hangar. Machine Dramon's death throes. The source of so many Digimon crimes and terrorist acts was perishing before their eyes, falling to pieces and threatening to take the hangar and the server with it. Return once more to your Digitama. This time I pray you are not taken in by a wicked soul, Judge said, eulogizing the state's secret Digimon. So this was the God of Thunder, the Mega Digimon. Kazuchimon turned around to face the remaining codecrackers. Its gaze was enough to freeze the leaders of the SOC in place. Eiji took stock of the situation. Megadramon lay unconscious on the floor of the hangar. Hopefully Marvin was still alive in there somewhere, but he couldn't be sure. Oh shoot, Marvin! How long has he been mind-linked? Megadramon launched a massive attack when it attacked Machine Dramon's coded fetters, which means even a seasoned veteran like Marvin had to be close to reaching his limit. As for you, SOC members, Judge said, fully turning his attention toward Eiji and the others. They know who we are, Lugomon growled. I've availed myself of your little operation in order to quickly and efficiently rid the world of a state sponsor of terror. A massive source of Digimon crime has been eliminated, taking with it the X-Nation's ability to wage cyber warfare, Judge said, pausing as though it was waiting for applause. Yeah, way to swoop in and steal our kill, Eiji yelled. Spy or no spy, he couldn't contain his anger at someone interfering with this operation. And I thank you for your role in leading me to it. But as a hacker, Judge let the word hang in the air long enough for Eiji to grit his teeth, I couldn't let you codecrackers have the pleasure. Judge severed the chat connection, so that was it. Judge had plotted all this out based on a hacker's warped sense of justice. We have to get out of here, Lugomon said to Eiji through their mind link. Huh? Eiji said, shaken out of his trance. The SOC operation was a failure. A colossal failure. This hacker's Mega Digimon unexpectedly interfered, and Marvin may be permanently lost. What should we do? Lugomon said, laying out the situation before him. Took all of 2 seconds for AG to reach the same conclusion. We gotta run. We can't be seen here, he said softly. Good answer. But we have to help Marvin. The guy from the SOC, the organization you're supposed to be spying on? He's not your friend. Lugomon snarled. I don't care. He made custom tools for me. He's a good guy. Learned a lot from him, and I'm not just gonna let him... AG couldn't finish the thought. He switched to the chat with the other SOC leaders. This is AG. The operation is a failure. We'll draw the hacker away while you grab Marvin and get out of here. Okay, but are you sure you can take a mega... There's no time. Let's go, Lugomon. AG and Lugomon turned to face their enemy. One of the SOC teams approached Megadramon and attempted to scoop up Megadramon with the same tool they'd planned to use to capture Machine Dramon. Kazuchimon lowered one of its 2 lightning-shaped blades. The electricity crackling around the hangar dissipated. Where is your leader, Tartarus? Judge demanded. Rumor has it they've never lost a single person in any of the operations they've planned. I expect I've dragged that reputation through the mud today. And if you think I'm going to stop there and let you go quietly, think again. This shall be SOC's final resting place. Boutmon, Ultimate, Beastman, Vaccine. Just your ultimate form? AG said, taunting but slightly surprised. This was a downgrade, not a digivolution, and he failed to see the rationale behind it. I've defeated Marvin and Megatramon, your greatest assets, and neutralized Machine Dramon, the greatest threat. This will be enough to clean up the rest of you, Judge said. AG would want to keep his distance if he could. Boutmon was a fighter. Getting involved in close quarters combat would be a death sentence. So we're weak? Easy targets? AG said to himself, his fury growing by the second. That hacker may be as even-tempered as you are angry, but if they're mind-linked, that means they're on the clock, same as you. Just remember, they're still linked to an ultimate Digimon, Lugomon rationalized. But Lugomon, I'm saying you're right, AG. If they're underestimating us, now's our chance. You got it, AG barked, taking one last look at his monitor to check his stats. Lugomon, Digivolve! We'll hit him where it hurts. Lugomon, Champion, Dark Beast, Virus. Lugomon was instantly enveloped in a ball of fire. They'd strike Botamon, which was now speeding towards Megadramon at a speed and angle it never anticipated. Flame Blow! Lugomon crashed into Boutmon and sent it flying into the distance. It blocked the full force of the attack with its knees, but that gave AG and Lugomon enough distance to stay out of harm's way. Boutmon was visibly shaken. Though it had blocked the worst of the attack, its knees were now smoldering. It was taking continual damage from the remaining heat. AG saw the SOC team manage to secure Megadramon with their tools. You? Judge seethed, now forced to reckon with AG and Lugomon. The move to its champion form had significantly increased the size of its legs, and its once blue-gray fur was now covered in flames that shot out from its body like a plume of decorated and deadly feathers. Howling Burner! Lugomon roared, unleashing a torrent of fire. Boutmon blocked again, but the magic flames now covered its arms, adding to the damage tally. It's evading all we can do against this Digimon. What is it even called? Lugomon? Judge said through gritted teeth. AG kept up his hit-and-run attack patterns, keeping his fighting-type enemy at a healthy distance. Do you really have all day to keep this up, you puny little pugilist? AG taunted. He had no idea what Judge was capable of, nor how much time they had left. Everyone had a time limit, but how close was Judge to theirs? If they were particularly compatible with their Digimon, this could be a long fight. That's why you downgraded, isn't it? You spent some time linked to a mega form, launched a big attack, and now despite being an amazing hacker, you found yourself needing to downgrade in order to give yourself a little more time. You can't stay in there forever. The rest of AG's teammates remained in their rookie forms. Time was the most important factor now. They didn't have to win, they just had to buy enough time to get Marvin out of here. All units retreat, you too, AG! Hurry! Shouted a familiar voice in the chat room. Marvin, is that you? Oh, it's sure good to hear your voice. Megadramon had come to inside the collection tool, restoring Marvin's chat access in the process. The SOC members began fleeing the hangar. AG? Judge said softly with a hint of recognition. Hacker Judge! Marvin yelled, you've made a huge mistake destroying Machine Dramon. You're going to regret making enemies of the SOC. Keep barking, little dog. You've lost this fight, Marvin the Songsmith. Judge said dismissively. You'll pay for this, Leon of Judgment! Marvin shouted back from within Megadramon's wounded body. Leon? AG's ears pricked up at the name. AG, look! Lugomon drew AG's attention back to his opponent, who was once again downgrading. This time to the rookie level. Pulsemon, rookie, Beastman, vaccine. They must have decided it was time to give up. They destroyed Machine Dramon, which was the only primary objective. AG looked pointedly at the small fairy-like Digimon that now stood before him, shooting off sparks like small fireworks. He couldn't shake the feeling he'd seen it somewhere before a long time ago. I'll only show you, AG. This is my treasure. My best friend. It all came rushing back to him. He was just a boy in elementary school when his friend showed him the same exact Digimon. He didn't know anything about Digimon, let alone the digital world back then. Pulsemon. AG turned the name over in his head. Is that you, Leo? Leon Alexander? AG's curiosity got the better of him, and he hololized himself. He stood beside Lugarmon's form for his opponent to see. He saw a change in Judge's demeanor within Pulsemon, too. Perhaps at hearing a familiar nickname. Judge hololized himself. He was blonde-haired and blue-eyed, as AG remembered, but the small boy he once knew had grown into a sharp, muscular young man. But that face, it was him. He couldn't be anyone else. Leo. AG? AG Nagasumi? A warning sounded, announcing the approach of reinforcements from Country X Defense Forces. Marvin, Megadramon, and a pair of SOC executives left the hangar on the recovery tool. AG, however, couldn't take his eyes off the hacker and the Digimon in front of him. Ryochi. Ichi. What are you eating? Why are you eating crackers, damn it? Landing. I guess he finally understood the situation. Attacks from Country X's defense force rained down on Pulsemon. In an instant, Pulsemon turned into a bolt of lightning and shot away faster than AG or anyone else could track with their naked eye. So you're a hacker now. I don't know what kind of history you have with Judge, but we're done here. We gotta get out of here, now, Lugarmon barked, holding the security forces at bay with a wall of fire. Deep inside the Digicore, AG's mind reeled as Lugarmon fled the hangar. A visitor darkened the digital door of Marvin's room on the SOC Grim channel. What foul wind blew you to my door? Came to wish me well? Marvin asked, turning his face to his unexpected guest. Standing in the doorway was an avatar with a necktie around its head, the sign of a company man on a bender. The interviewer from the SOC. Glad to see you're not experiencing any lingering effects, old friend. The interviewer, no, the Digimon at the avatar's feet was speaking. Dorumon. Rookie. Beast Data. The Digimon flicked its fluffy tail. Though it was classified as a beast type, one could easily see the small draconic wings protruding from its back upon further inspection. Rumor had it they came from the data of a mythical dragon sealed within Dorumon's Digicore. I wouldn't have made it back if not for you, Marvin replied. And Airdramon status? Luckily, the Digicore didn't sustain heavy damage. He's in maintenance and probably will be for a while. Indeed, Airdramon was nowhere to be seen on the catwalk above. And had Megadramon remained offline, and your consciousness crossed the L line, Marvin would have been DMIA, lost on the network forever. He let out a slight chuckle. That new kid you scouted saved me. Can't believe I let a hacker get one over on me. For the first time in all my years on the network, I felt old. Heck, maybe it is time to call it, I don't know, Marvin said, jumping from one thing to the next. Grim was abuzz with news of the attack on the X Nation. The hackers had leaked their side of the story. A lone hacker named Judge had single-handedly stopped a large-scale attack on the X Nation server orchestrated by the Sons of Chaos. Judge outwitted not only the X Nation, which had lost its state-secret Digimon, but the famed Tartarus, the leader of the SOC. We're exploring retaliatory options on Judge the hacker, the Digimon said. Leon of Judgment. You make an enemy of him, you make an enemy of my home country. Good old Stars and Stripes, Marvin said, pantomiming a gesture that said, think about this very carefully. This is a severe provocation that threatens not only the SOC, but the very ideals of the entire Codecracker team, Dorumon shot back. In other words, we're not going to let this go, the interviewer's avatar interjected. It was no longer an office worker with a tie for a headband. A new avatar, a man wearing a jacket, stood beside the Digimon. A scar charted the path from his forehead to just above his left eye. No one would mistake him for a cog in the corporate machine, for this was Tartarus. The office worker was a secondary avatar used for cover and recruitment. Tartarus, the legendary codecracker and leader of the SOC, revealed his true form to Marvin, who had seen him so many times before. So it's time to finally begin your true battle, Tartarus. Doraemon. Marvin looked at his leader. It hurts to lose one classified Digimon, but the time is ripe. The last piece has finally come together. The Demon Wolf of Nine Wolf Castle, Lugarmon, and Cracker Ag. Tartarus and Doraemon shared this intention as partners. Ag, there was something you guys just noticed. First, I thought he was a fashionable guy, but no matter how much I tried to flatter him, he didn't get carried away, so I never misunderstood him. He's also a professional. He didn't run away. He didn't abandon me. To be honest, I love Ag. Hey! Doraemon let out a small laugh. But his partner's still a champion. Marvin expresses his concerns. But there's room for growth. If we didn't have that, we'll be in trouble. For that reason, Tartarus, I didn't expect Ag. Digivolution, Doraemon continued. Growth is always stimulated when you go beyond your limits, and when you use your limits as a springboard. Doraemon opened the virtual monitor. Eiji Nagasumi and Leon Alexander's facial photos and data are displayed. We haven't seen Eiji's seriousness yet. Unless we see the cracker that he is as a human being, we won't be able to understand him in the end. Can we count on you, Marvin the Songsmith, to have our backs and see this through to the end? Doraemon asked calmly. Of course, Doraemon. Tartarus. Allies to the end. Nice work, Leon, Pulsemon said, greeting its partner, an employee of Aberdeen Electronics, Denrin District Digital Lab. Leon Alexander carefully removed the sensor-filled helmet used for mind-link endurance tests from his head as he sat up from the testing apparatus. Pulsemon hololized itself and began running around the simulator room in the classified D4 department. Sitting still was never Pulsemon's strong suit. You too, Pulsemon, he said, softly as he stood up, extending to his full 800 centimeter and change height. The form-fitting suit left little of his Greek sculpture of a body to the imagination. His dirty blonde hair complemented his blue eyes, and he was wise beyond his 19 years. We did it. That is a new mind-link endurance record. It was all in the simulator, of course, but as far as anyone could confirm, this was a new world record. Oh, yeah? Well, I couldn't have done it without you, buddy. Yeah, I guess not. We're unstoppable. No one runs faster for longer, and no matter what you say, it's all because they put you in a diaper. That's taking it too far. Oh, come on. We've been a team since you were in elementary school. I didn't just meet you yesterday. Phenomenal. A voice over the simulation room's intercom interrupted their playful spat. They turned to see Professor Senji, standing on the other side of the window. Didn't realize you were there, Professor, Leon said glumly, hanging his head. Hey there, Yogyu. Pulseman chirped, never one to let decorum get in his way. It was living proof the whole Digimon take on characteristics of the person raising them theory was a total lie. Hey, hi, hello, good morning, Pulsemon. Thankfully, Professor Senji was able to roll with the punches and match Pulsemon's energy. And congratulations, Leon. Thank you, Professor. America has exacted its revenge on the criminal who took down WWW Flight 626. Professor Senshi said solemnly. Leon's eyes widened as he processed the meaning of the professor's words. The SOC's premeditated large-scale attack on the X-Nation's data server was scuttled by a lone hacker. And the X-Nation's crown jewel, the state-secret Digimon Machinedramon, was destroyed. Phenomenal. To think that the hacker known only as Judge would be a match for an entire nation. Professor Senji beamed as he heaped praises on Judge's exploits. Machinedramon was behind the WWW-626 crash that killed more than 100 Americans, and America does not abide terrorism, Leon said carefully. And who ordered the strike? The Department of Defense? Nah, I acted of my own accord. It was now or never. The crash of WWW-626 was an act of terrorism that was a disgrace to my country, and a loss I needed to overcome if I was to continue my hacking career, Leon answered, tightening the narrative. Yeah, that's our story, Professor Senji said, ending his round of questioning. Yeah, Leon agreed. What a rush. Hitching a ride on the SOC's little plot. Goodness, to think the young boy I gave a Digimon dock and Digitama to not many years ago would grow into the young man I see before me now, Senji said through a giddy smile. Leon Alexander had been living in Japan for several years now, ever since elementary school. His father was an assistant professor who now worked at the Tokyo University of Electrical and Computer Engineering. One day, Leon got to go to the Aberdeen Electronics Lab, where a man his father called Professor showed him a strange video. It was in black and white, and the small collection of dots on the display suggested a living creature moving around just behind the screen. The professor explained this was no mere game or toy, but a creature that was very much alive in the digital world, which was very much different from the real world. He said, "You look like you do a fine job raising it with love and care, so I'm giving this dock to you," and handed it to me, Leon said, recalling how he'd come to be in possession of his first dock. He handed Leon the device, which had a keyring attached to it. On the screen was a small egg, a Digitama. An AI creature would one day hatch from it, he was told, and how he raised it would determine how it digivolved, and the form it took thereafter. The professor went on to explain that he called these life forms digital monsters, or Digimon. From that day on, Leon was hooked. He was a quiet child with few friends, and having a digital friend only increased his introversion. The scholarly-minded father was simply happy to see his son enthusiastic about something, and knew he needn't worry about his son's future. Leon only shared his and Digimon with one other person, and secretly at that, Eiji Nagasumi, a friend so close as to be family. The Digimon that hatched from the egg that Leon raised to rookie level was Pulsemon. How had Eiji reacted again? Leon recalled, "That's so cool. Does it poop?" And, "Wow, it listens better than our dog," being among the questions and comments. They eventually drifted apart. Middle school exams kept them pretty busy, and the results sent them to different schools. Leon's father then had to move the family back to America suddenly. No one came to see them off. But that wasn't a surprise, considering Leon's father had only told his supervisor, and his supervisor didn't much care. Leon, however, had a drive to study these AI creatures. He set his sights on applying to Tokyo University of Electrical and Computer Engineering, where he now knew Tominori Risenji worked. Professor Risenji, for his part, had emailed on occasion, and Leon dutifully updated him on Pulsemon's progress. In return, the professor would send him links with instructions on how to build and modify his Digimon dock. The next thing Leon knew, he was a long-time grim-dwelling geek, certified denizen of the internet's underground. Leon stockpiled a ton of experience on the internet in high school, using his father as an intermediary to secure parts and equipment. He had even begun mind-linking, despite not having the latest technology. His knowledge of the digital world and things going on beneath the surface of the real world gave him a certain amount of confidence that only grew out over time. He felt closer to the truth. One part of that truth, Digimon crime was rampant on the network, tolerated even. Leon developed a righteous indignation towards code-cracking teams, who he saw as the criminal organization sowing the seeds of lawlessness among their members. He then put it to good use, engaging in hacking activities alongside his newly digital partner, Pulsemon. Then one fateful day, Leon saw signs of a massive Digimon crime being plotted on Grimm. He began taking deep mind-linked dives into the network in order to prepare for the fight. It was going to be a showdown between a group of cyber-terrorists looking to carry out Digimon crimes and counterterrorism forces, namely the Cybersecurity Special Forces and the American military. Everyone now knows what became of that mission. Flight WWW-626 diverted from its planned flight path and disappeared from the radar altogether before crashing into the ocean. The flight recorder was never recovered. No one survived. The death toll was in the triple digits. The X-Nation's state-secret Digimon, Machinedramon, was responsible. The American effort to prevent the atrocity failed. Leon, a self-styled just and ethical hacker, and his partner Pulsemon had been powerless to stop it. Machinedramon, already a mega Digimon everyone feared, may now as well be the devil. As Pulsemon lay wounded and Leon's mind-link timer crept closer to the L-line, he wept openly inside the Digicore. He'd put his Digimon in harm's way. He'd failed to stop an act of terrorism. He would never forgive himself. He'd been disgraced. He'd lost. The one thing he didn't do was wallow. He took on other jobs to burnish his hacking skills and slowly rebuild his confidence one win at a time. He shot to the top of his class in school, almost as fast as he shot up in height. He took up combat sports and martial arts to take control of his nerves and began training as if he had been shipped off to boot camp. He was moving forward, always forward, not dwelling on the past. He had a goal, and that was to get into Tokyo University of Electrical and Computer Engineering. He would study at the feet of Professor Usenji and develop his skills until he could protect the world from Digimon crime, from code crackers who would use Digimon for ill. Making such defined choices about one's life isn't without sacrifice. Leon closed himself off to opportunities, even as others presented themselves to him. Those of his generation may have thought him mature. Women were drawn to him. A student with a part-time job as a hacker made him stand out financially in short order, and his high school career was a bit flashier than most. As a college student, he had a homecoming, returning to Japan to attend Tokyo University of Electrical and Computer Engineering exactly as planned. He began working as a hacker for the DDL under Professor Usenji, which meant he lived a very different life from that of the other students. This was where his life on the network as the hacker judge began. Professor Usenji knew, naturally, and quietly gave him the new Digimon linker without too much explanation. He cheered Leon from behind the scenes. Before long, Leon was no longer just a researcher, but a person of some influence within the organization, advising the Japanese military and police on current techniques. He even had direct connections to heads of state. Professor Usenji was a hero to Leon, the ideal man. He knew and loved the digital world more than anyone else, after all, and he put that knowledge to good use. Sitting beside Professor Usenji for an online meeting with the United States Secretary of Defense, Leon's heart swelled with pride. He was on the just and righteous path. Pulsemon digivolved from champion to ultimate as Bautamon, and then to Mega as Kazuchimon. He began eliminating code crackers and their Digimon. The digital world needed order. It needed justice, and Leon of Judgment rose to provide it. Word of him spread far and wide over the network, and he became the natural enemy of code crackers. The police, and by extension the Digipolice, were forced to reckon with him. Back in the DDL simulation chamber in present day, Leon Alexander showed Pulsemon his watch as Professor Usenji looked on through the window. Almost time for our meeting. Have plans this evening? Professor Usenji's interest was piqued. Yeah, I'm gonna meet He searched for the right words. An old friend. Oh, wow. Isn't that a surprise? We, reconnected on the internet by chance. Took me by surprise. Haven't seen him since elementary school, and I believe you know him as well. The attack on the X Nation server had reached the mass media. They were a dictatorship cut off from diplomatic relationships with the international community, which meant the media didn't have all the details. Satellite photos showed the capital shrouded in darkness, the result of a precipitous drop in the nation's energy output. Such grievous harm is the direct result of the cyber attack perpetuated by criminal code crackers, and we are likely to attack with fury the likes of which have never been seen before. The X Nation's dictator bellowed in prepared remarks. The better briefed heads of state, who knew that most of the nation's cyber warfare capabilities had just been destroyed, were likely laughing to themselves in horror as they watched. This was the impotent fury of a dictator who had lost his prized Digimon. He was no doubt shaking with rage at being so thoroughly disgraced. I was there, on the front lines of a cyber terrorist event. This was what AG always imagined it would be like to be a code cracker, and he felt strangely uplifted by the whole thing. He wasn't completely free of worry, but for the first time in a while, he had lofty expectations of himself, of future success. It was all a complicated jumble that had his nerves jangling, but the predominant feeling was a light and fulfilling sense of accomplishment. For the first time in his life of nearly 20 years, AG! The shout rang through the DDL lobby, pulling AG's head up out of his smartphone where it had been buried while he waited on the bench. The three comma-esque objects were still hololized right where they had always been. On the other side of the security gate waved the friend AG was waiting for. Memories from elementary school came rushing back to him. The small, slight boy AG knew might as well have been a different person. Leon Alexander was now a tall, muscular man. Give me just a moment. Leon Alexander, 19, the same age as Eiji, is an American student at Tokyo's University of Electrical and Computer Engineering. Leo, it's been forever. Yeah, it's good to see you again. Leon spoke fluent Japanese, which was a help. We last saw each other in elementary school, right? Yep. Went back to America as soon as we went to middle school, Leon said with an easy smile. Ah, that's right. Your dad was a professor at Tokyo Electrical, right? And you've got a good memory. And you really grew up. I remember being the bigger one when we were kids. Leon wasn't just taller either. He was bigger all around. Eiji figured he must be hitting the gym or playing some kind of sports. Look, we could stand and chat forever, but let's find a spot to sit, Leon said. Eiji got his pass from the front desk and stepped through the gate, and made his way to the cafe inside DDL. Cafe security was lighter relative to the rest of DDL and was far and away less tightly controlled than the rest of the D4 division. He bought a drink and sat down at the table. So, Leon, sorry. Nah, Leo's fine. You're the only one who ever called me that, believe it or not, Leo said, with a laugh. Eiji tried to cast his mind back, but his memories prior to elementary school were an indistinct haze of shapes and colors. He watched as Leon took something out as if to kickstart the conversation. An old-school keychain-style Digimon dock. It was several generations old and sported a monochrome LCD screen. Oh my gosh, that's a dock. Back in the day, I thought it was a gaming handheld, Eiji squealed. Leon had raised Digimon with this very dock some 7 or 8 years ago. I didn't know anything about the digital world then either. I was singularly focused on raising Digimon, Leon said wistfully. Looking carefully back at the back of the device, Eiji noticed it was made by Aberdeen Electronics. It still worked, but there weren't any Digimon in it. Whoa, this takes me back. So many memories just bubbled up, Eiji said, opening an opportunity for the pair to retrace their childhoods. At the time, Leon was completely absorbed by raising Digimon on a handheld game that wasn't sold on the market. Then he got into a different middle school than Eiji, and they slowly drifted apart. Shortly after, Leon heard from his parents they were returning to America. It all had happened suddenly and had to do with his father's job. The offer itself was fantastic, but if I'd known, I wouldn't have bothered with those entrance exams, Leon said with a measure of exhaustion. Yeah, I bet. Leon felt lonely at the time, but friendships at that stage of life change on a whim. Even changing classes was enough to break them, never mind changing schools. Even now, Eiji hadn't bothered to keep in touch with his high school friends, and so it goes. Sometimes, though, life provides chance reunions like this. Leon held out his arm, revealing a smartwatch-like Digimon linker. A hololized Digimon appeared, sparks shooting off its body. Eiji was sure he'd be shocked by the various creature if he got too close, despite knowing it was nothing more than a video. This is Pulsemon, Leon said. Yeah, this is the one you were raising all those years ago, Eiji said excitedly. The creature hadn't changed one bit. Eiji hololized Lugumon from his own Digimon linker, which was permitted within DDL. The two rookie Digimon looked at each other in silence from across the table. They hadn't exactly had a prolonged battle with one another while on the X-Nation server, and yet the air was tense. Lugumon narrowed its eyes and kept them focused on the gently bobbing Pulsemon across the table. Be cool, you're both hololized, nothing's gonna happen. I like this picture. Eiji and Leon turned their attention away from their Digimon and continued catching up one another on their lives. Though they never consciously labeled one another best friends, had you asked them at the time, they would have likely said the other's name in response. Eiji still held Leon in high regard. His memory of that time had been perfectly crystallized in his mind. Leon felt the same, probably. Not that it mattered. They were far too young to go around trapping themselves in some imagined nostalgic past conjured out of distant memories. I'm impressed, Eiji said, turning the conversation toward more serious matters. Didn't take you long to find my contact info. Leon, or Judge, the famous hacker, was the one who sent a message offering to meet up in the first place. You moved, didn't you? Your old house is gone. Leon was right. He'd moved out of his old family home and hadn't been back since it wasn't about to go out of his way to see it, but he heard it was due to being torn down and replaced by an apartment building. It seemed to be the way of things these days. Oh, yeah, I'm living on my own these days. Same. Leon lived in an apartment building in the Denrin district. A one-room apartment, 3 tatami mats in size. You too? I'm a hacker, so... AG briefly wondered why Leon hadn't sent him a message on Grim, but there were a ton of dummy accounts on the channel SOC server that must have made his harder to locate. Yeah, but you're not just a hacker. You're in Japan in a studio at Tokyo Electrical, no less. AG mentioned that he sometimes came to DDL for work when Leon texted, and so they had agreed to meet up. Studying here has been my goal ever since we moved. Indeed, this was the best place for anyone looking to learn more about the Digimon or digital world. It was one of the toughest Japanese universities to get into, and only a handful of those who were accepted have actually got to work with Professor Senji. Which brings me to the second surprising thing. You're one of Professor Senji's students. I've been working with him as well, Eiji said, proudly emphasizing the last part. Leon recounted his history with the eccentric professor. He said, "You look like you do a fine job of raising it with love and care, so I'm giving this stock to you," and handed it to me, Leon said, recalling how he'd come to be in possession of his first stock. So Professor Senji gave you the keychain dock then, huh? The world had never felt smaller or more dense with meaningful connections. Eiji couldn't help but be awed by the story of how Leon came to be a hacker contracted by DDL. He'd even accompanied Professor Senji on overseas trips to various meetings and academic conferences. You're basically his apprentice then, Eiji asked. More like his professional assistant. He still operates all this independently. When would he possibly have time to purchase tickets or reserve a hotel room? Oof, that doesn't sound like your strong suit, right? I met the professor a lot more recently. I can still count the number of times we've met. I'll put it that way. I had no idea. It must have been weird to get a job offer from him, seeing as how you're a code cracker. Like some wires got crossed on the network. Yeah, for sure. What a small world. Eiji took a sip from his drink. I see your current doc is also Aberdeen's latest. Leon glanced at Eiji's arm as he picked up his paper cup. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. So you got the same one in a different color. Yep. The professor gave it to me for a job. The Digimon, too. Oh, and keep this between us, yeah? It's some sort of testing and Digimon raising job. Eiji, these Digimon linkers are more important than you realize, Leon said, visibly stiffening. Yeah? They're highly classified Aberdeen electronics devices. I thought I was the only one aside from the police who had one. Gotta say, I'm a little ticked to find out that that's not the case, he said, a bit too sharply to be joking. Eiji sat in silence for a moment. A digital world researcher personally reaching out to a code cracker for a job isn't the weird part. It's rarer than hiring a hacker, but not unheard of. Leon continued. Yeah, like, go get me this rare Digimon, right? I think it was a Madoki Betamon I caught for him, Eiji interjected. He does like his Betamon. But my point is, he should have asked me, his actual pupil, to do this job instead of a code cracker. There we go, sorry. Eiji sat in stunned silence. Was Leon jealous? Eiji put himself in Leon's shoes. He definitely had a longer relationship with the professor, who personally introduced him to the world of Digimon. Leon was a true believer, a passionate fan of Professor Senji's work. Not that Eiji wasn't. Yeah, and if we'd actually fought back there, we would have won, Pulsemon added. What do you say, you Static Shock? Eiji was still processing the rather blunt words being hurled at him. He flinched at the booming voice next to him. It's obvious, pup. I can go all the way to Mega. And you, Lugomon, right? Have your hands full maintaining champion level, which is adorable, by the way. You little. The two Digimon carried on at length about which one would win if they fought, which was now its own battle. That's enough, Lugomon. We get it. You used to run an entire district, but you're still no match for a Mega Digimon, Eiji hissed. So none of this bothers you? Lugomon growled, his fur standing on end. Eiji tried to connect the dots in his head. If Leon and Pulsemon could get all the way to Kazuchimon, that must put them near the top of the pack in terms of hackers. If Eiji were A tier, they were S tier. If not double S. Same goes for you, Pulsemon. Can it? Leon said. I can't help it. Digimon keeps antagonizing me. Pulsemon whined, smugly acting as though it had done nothing wrong. I don't care. AG and I are friends. I was weak, and he stood up for me. Leon had been a wisp of a child and often silent in class, which curiously made him stand out more. AG, however, was always right there beside him. So what? Is he one of these friends you humans always talk about? I don't know where to start with all that. Please come up with a hierarchy. Can you make sense of it, Digimon? Pulsemon asked with a maximum condescension. Nope. What else could possibly matter aside from who is stronger? I mean, I suppose their biological sex holds some significance. It does help them make more of each other, Pulsemon said, laying bare Digimon's thoughts on human intimacy. I always thought your weakness, as you put it, was just you doing your own thing, AG finally said, leaving the Digimon to their banter. Yeah. I've never seen you cry or anything. This whole weak thing didn't square with the Leon AG knew. I guess not, Leon said, nodding. I think you're the only person other than my dad who actually understood me. That's why I took to you. Oh? Pulsemon, it's not about who's stronger or weaker. What matters is that the strong protect the weak. Yeah, listen to him, Lugumon. You know I've looked down on you this whole time, haven't you? You have? Oh, what is that? It's so cute! A shriek of delight startled them both. Hatsune from the reception desk had drifted over to the table and brought a friend who couldn't contain her excitement. Everything okay, Hatsune? Hello, AG, and hello, Leon. Do you two know each other, or did Professor Asinji introduce you? Well, Leon and we went to elementary school together, Leon said, both finishing the thought and cutting AG off. Oh, wow, so you went to school in America, AG? The surprise in her voice was palpable. No, Leon went to elementary school here in Japan. So that's why you're fluent in Japanese, eh, Leon? The pieces were sliding into place for her. Hatsune's friend, meanwhile, was utterly transfixed by Pulsemon and Lugumon. She was a recent TDL hire who knew Hatsune through school, though they hadn't been in the same class. Her semi-long hair was done up in very intricate braids, and it was clear she had never seen a hololized Digimon before. Why, hello there, pretty lady, Pulsemon chirped, unbothered by the attention. Like what you see, Lugumon said, not necessarily displeased by the attention. Stop it, Lugumon, don't harass her, AG snapped. What's gotten into you, AG? Hi there, are you interested in Digimon? AG asked, hastily making nice with Lugumon. I mean, I don't know. This is AG Nagasumi, a contractor who's friendly with Professor Asinji, and you might already know Leon. He's a hacker who works for us. Hatsune cut in to keep things from going too far off the rails, and to introduce her colleague to Leon and AG. Wow, a hacker. DDL's hackers were known to be among the best. Yep, they're both just 19-year-olds too. Younger than us. Not that we needed a reminder, Hatsune went on, trying to cut things short. My gosh, so young and handsome. Okay, let's not harass anyone. Hatsune desperately tried to peel her friend away, who was now obviously looking over in Leon's direction any chance she got. The Digimon had clearly just been an excuse to come over and chat. Such grievous harm is the direct result of the cyber attack perpetuated by criminal code crackers, and we are likely to attack with a fury the likes of which has never been seen before. A large monitor hung from the cafe's ceiling, and the news was playing the dictator of X Nation's response to the cyber attack. Everyone turned to watch. Another code cracker attack, Hatsune's friend said with disgust. Even as a DDL employee, she didn't have much reason to think about the digital world, or the truth behind Digimon crimes. Sure, she'd just seen a Digimon or two now, but she wasn't necessarily any better informed than someone off the street. It didn't have to be. The attack on the server, the dictator's fight to keep the SOC from making the nation's state secret from taking the nation's state secret Machinedramon, the interruption from the hacker who goes by Judge, all D4 classified, naturally. Alright, I'm actually out of energy, and rightfully so. They compressed a lot more into the second act than they did in the first act, despite having fewer chapters. When we come back next week, we will finish this act and potentially delve into Act 3. But yeah. Ladies, gentlemen, everyone in between, everyone exempt, everyone floating violently between the extremes, be safe, be well. Have a good night. I've got a bunch of clip editing to do from over the course of the last week. That's going to take me a bit. Without any further ado, good night.
危険な蝶になってきらめく風に乗って今すぐ君に会いに行こう余計なことなんて忘れた方がましさこれ以上されてる時間はない何がこの空に届くのだろうだけど明日の予定もわからない携帯な夢の後の何もない世の中じゃそうさ愛しい思いも負けそうになるけど静寂なイメージだらけの頼りない翼でもきっと飛べるさ Oh my love無限大な夢の後の何もない世の中じゃそうさ愛しい思いも負けそうになるけど静しかしないイメージだらけの頼りない翼でもきっと飛べるさ Oh yeah常識外れも悪くはないから清楚なイメージを染めたぎこちない翼でもきっと飛べるぜ Oh my love ご機嫌な蝶になってきらめく風に乗って今すぐ君に会いに行こう余計なことなんて忘れた方がマシさこれ以上しゃれてる時間はない何がこの空に届くのだろうだけど明日の予定もわからない無限大な夢の後の何もない世の中じゃ 長になって一途な風に乗ってどこまでも君に会いに行こう曖昧な言葉って意外に便利だって叫んでる悲壮に聞きながら何がこの街に響くのだろうだけど期待してても仕方ない無限大な夢の後のやるせない世の中じゃそうさ常識外れもあるとはないから清楚なイメージを染めたぎこちない翼でも